What comes to your mind when you think about Job? If you're like most believers, and I don't think 99% is an exaggeration, you probably think of a man who was incredibly righteous, someone who lived right before God, and yet one day, with God's permission, Satan attacked him and made him sick. Maybe you've always thought that Job's story shows that God can test anyone, even good people, with sickness or suffering whenever he wants. Maybe you even know someone who's been sick for years, or maybe that's you, and you've made peace with it, thinking it's just my test, like Job. Maybe Job's story even encourages you, and you see him as an example of faithfulness in suffering. But maybe for you, Job's story doesn't encourage you at all. Maybe it actually scares you because deep down you wonder, what if that happens to me? What if one day, out of nowhere, God lets the devil destroy everything I have? But here's what almost everyone misses. When you look at the book of Job in the bigger picture of the Bible, when you take off the lens of tradition, you start to notice details that completely change how we understand his story. You begin to see that there is a huge difference between Job and you as a believer in Jesus. See, when we look at Jesus and his cross, we realize something powerful. The cross proves that all people, even the most righteous ones from the Old Testament, have sinned. It shows that even those who had a covenant with God, like Israel, still needed a new and better covenant. And that's the covenant we have today, the one sealed by Jesus' blood. It's the covenant where the accuser, the devil himself, was thrown down, silenced, where Jesus became our perfect mediator, where his sacrifice caused Satan to fall like lightning from heaven and lose his place before God forever. And that's the part 99% of Christians miss, because you live under this new covenant. You have what Job never had. Job didn't yet have Jesus. He didn't have the blood of the Lamb. He didn't have the promises of the new covenant. He didn't have the accuser cast down. He was on his own, a good man in a fallen world, doing his best to live right. And God saw that, and he loved that. That's why the Bible tells his story. But Job was still a man without a mediator, without the power of the cross. And that's the difference. My prayer for you is that you see this deep in your heart, that you stop seeing yourself as a victim of the enemy's accusations and stop believing you're just a pawn of spiritual forces. And if you really want to compare yourself to Job, then do it the way James tells us to, as someone who went through sickness but was fully restored and healed by God in the end.